Released by Capcom in the year 2000 on the PlayStation, Breath of Fire 4 would be the next installment in Capcom's premier RPG series. Written and directed by Makoto Ikuhara, who also worked on every installment thus far, the game would again combine 2D and 3D graphics with an isometric viewpoint. For characters, the series carries the tradition of the main protagonists featuring a boy named Ryu and girl named Nina. For gameplay, battles are turn-based, and if certain effects are used in succession, powerful combos can be executed, not to mention, party members can be swapped in the middle of battle. There are 7 playable characters in total, though only 3 can be fielded in battle at a time, and each offer a unique move that can be used on the field to expand exploration. Like Breath of Fire 3, certain skills can be learned from monsters, and others can be learned by mentor NPCs, and these skills can be freely distributed among the party to custom tailor each member. Also, there is a village building micromanagement minigame, as well as the series staple fishing minigame. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. The game begins with a winged woman named Nina alongside a catman named Cray heading to the desert town of Sinesta looking for Nina's sister Alina, when suddenly a giant desert dragon erupts out and gives chase. It knocks aside their sandship, though leaves just as suddenly. Crashing safely, they agree to split up, with Cray looking after their sandflyer and Nina going out to the nearby town and getting parts to fix it with. Venturing out, she falls into a pit where she encounters a strange dragon that doesn't seem hostile as it flies away and leaves behind a strange young man named Ryu. Ryu doesn't know where he is or why he's here, so Nina agrees to help him to the nearest town of Sarai. Encountering some monsters and winning a great victory, it turns out Nina is magically adept and Ryu is strong with a blade, as she gives him the King's Blade she received from Cray, though elsewhere a mysterious and powerful man named Folu emerges from a tomb, intent on reclaiming his throne. As it turns out, Folu is the first emperor of the Fo Empire, though it seems his return is not entirely welcome. Still, even with the power to command and even transform into a dragon, the cunning General Yom of the Imperial army is intent on killing him in his weakened state. Back with Ryu and Nina, they make it to Sarai and get some spare parts, but run into some unfriendly Imperial troops there, as Ryu breaks a King's Blade on one of them. Taking a detour back to the Sandflyer, their path is blocked by a dangerous miasma called the Hex, and they seek the help of a local purifier, a person whose job it is to neutralize the Hex in order to get past it. They meet Urshan, a quirky purifier, who offers to show them the way, and while dodging the many monsters that seem formed from the negative energy of the Hex, they safely make it back to Cray. Between them, Ryu is gaining new powers thanks to Folu unknowingly, Nina and her sister Alina are princesses of Windia, Cray is the chief of the Warrens, and Urshan seems to never step out of her armor. That night, Ryu has a dream of rescuing Alina, but curiously they all have the same dream, and Urshan, who has a particular interest in Ryu, explains he has powers of clairvoyance with his dragon's eye. Working on that information, they continue on their way to Sinesta. They learn of Alina's whereabouts and are shocked to learn she's been taken straight to the Empire's capital itself. Finding the scoundrel who ferried her there, they get smuggled across the border in pursuit. At the same time, Folu recovers from his grave injuries, though he is soon discovered by the same general again, who remarks how Folu is of one of the god race, the Endless. Trying again to kill the former emperor, General Yom reveals he knows that while Folu is regaining his might steadily, his other half was only born recently and is likely much weaker and easier to kill by comparison. Folu knows this to be true and now makes it his priority to hurry to the capital and find his other half. He transforms into a dragon and dashes away, but the dragon sends his own flying monster after him, who successfully knocks him out of the sky. Back with Ryu, the smuggler gets them right before the major bridge that links their eastern continent of Levant to the western one of Hesperia. Though it turns out the bridge is really a portal to the other side, they enter and now step foot into Imperial land. Despite a ceasefire and the conflict between both nations, getting caught here would still be seen as trespassing. Finding the building where Alina is held, they are unfortunately caught by a sorceress man named Lord Yuna. Cray reveals they're here looking for Alina, and Yuna claims she came here on a goodwill mission, but is now no longer with them. Capturing and escorting them back to Levant to the kingdom of Ludia, the group is scolded by the king there, and Cray is even sent in for questioning on his actions. Assigned to chaperone them and keep them out of trouble is Sias, a tall, shaggy dogman. Unsure of how to free Cray, they travel to his home tribe for advice, and they urge him to seek his mother, the former chief's wife. As Ryu journeys out to find her on saddleback, Sias is intrigued at the lake the party is willing to go to for Cray. Meanwhile, the tribunal grills Cray on his actions as a national leader, doesn't care about Alina so much as playing politics, and points out he lost the King's Blade, the symbol of the Alliance. When Ryu tells Cray's mother about the state of the sword, she mentions returning it would take a lot of heat off Cray, but they need to get a new one forged quickly. She knows a smithy that can make a copy and directs them to his workshop, deep inside a volcano. Venturing there, it turns out this smithy was the man who made the king's sword originally, so after gathering the necessary materials, he's able to make another one very quickly. However, when they return to Kray's tribunal, the tribunal claims the Empire returned the king's sword to them after making a few severe demands, including changes to the treaty, so Kray's punishment will still be harsher to reflect it. Sias is also scolded for letting them make a fake sword, but Sias replies he was only assigned to watch them, not to stop them. With no faith in the system anymore, Nina thinks now to break Kray out of containment, and Ryu and Sias agree. Sneaking in at night and knocking out the guards, they meet Kray, who is ready to leave since no one else cares what happens to Princess Alina. As they move to go talk to Warrant and make sure they don't attack the Alliance for Kray suddenly going missing, it dawns on Nina that the Empire mentioned they were looking for a dragon, and that must mean Ryu, given his mysterious appearance here and dragon powers. But to make sure he is a dragon, she thinks to visit her town of Windia, where they have a wind dragon that can verify for them. Her father is relieved to see her well and expresses concern on how far their supposed ally Ludia will go to appease the Empire over helping their own ally find his daughter. He allows them to see the wind dragon and offers to protect them from the Ludians who are now searching for them. Speaking with the Oracle for the wind dragon, she notes that Ryu only has one dragon eye, which is a rare trait, but that doesn't make him a dragon. Still, he has a powerful aura about him that reminds her of a dragon that the wind dragon told her about, one that only appears every 100 years called the Yorei dragon, or dragon of the future, that portends either great prosperity or destruction. Clearly the Empire is after such a power, but secretly Sias reports their whereabouts to the Ludians for a sum of money, proving his mercenary nature, and exposing Ludians' plot to find Yorei before the Empire does. The Ludians move quickly, accusing them of delivering Ryu to the Empire, and offering to pardon them if they surrender Ryu to them instead. They refuse and fend off a wave of assassins, but when things seem dire, it's Sias who comes in, choosing now to break ties with Ludia and follow his instincts to side with the party. Defeating the assassins and welcoming Sias along, they sail into the sky to meet the Wind Dragon, who indeed recognizes Ryu as Yorei. He explains Ryu is one of the Endless race, and also a dragon, so basically a god. It explains the Endless are summoned to this world by mortals, and while powerful, are not inherently good or evil, as their use will be reflected by those who summon them. While it can't tell who summoned Ryu, Ryu is currently not only blank slate, but also incomplete. To gain his complete form, he must travel to the place of summoning, and it offers to take them there. It brings them to the village where they can learn more of the Endless, and it turns out that normally this village is the one summoning dragons to this world, but it's puzzling as Ryu was not summoned by them. The Elder pulls Ryu into a dream world to speak with him personally, but somehow Urshan is able to enter as well. As it turns out, Urshan is also a god, albeit very weak due to being sealed within her armor. The next day, Kray is a bit put off by how large this is quickly escalating, but still helps as they all enter Urshan's mind to now break the seal binding her. Breaking her seal, Urshan is truly a goddess within, but lacks a real body. She requests they find a medium who will loan her their body, and they get the most powerful medium in the village, a small girl. Urshan isn't too pleased, but settles while revealing a more uppity aspect of herself. She reveals both herself and Ryu are indeed endless, making them dragon gods, but also that they were summoned by the foe empire. They devise an alternative way of summoning, but it is flawed, which is why herself and Ryu were incomplete upon arrival. She was summoned without a form and thus was stuck in the armor, and Ryu was split into two. But unfortunately, he's not only split physically, but by time as well. As it turns out, Ryu's other half is the first emperor of the foe empire, Folu. At this time, we see Folu is again in the care of a commoner tending to his severe injuries, a young girl named Mami. As he rests, he tells her his story, of how there were once many warring nations, and he was summoned to make a world of peace. So, he decided to unite all the nations and made one empire, thus becoming the first emperor. However, after this, he fell into a slumber because he wasn't complete. Back with Ryu, Urshan explains Ryu will become one with the Emperor, but if they don't want the Emperor to further the Empire's agenda, then Ryu needs to become the stronger half. There's a way to power up Ryu, and so she guides them, while also revealing her real name to be Dees. Urshan was just the name the armor gave itself after it animated itself thanks to her power, as Urshan means master in the language of the Empire. Taking them to the spot where countless Endless have been summoned before, Dees leads Ryu into calling upon the other dragons of the world. His beacon is felt even by Folu, who also notes a nearby volcano is smoking, something Mami says is the work of the god that lives there. Wishing to meet this god, Folu enters the mountain, and finds it's merely a large golem animated by the energy of another god, similar to Urshan, and is no real god on its own. The golem asserts itself over Folu, who is forced to destroy it, noting the side effects of summoning gods to this world. When he returns, some of the other villagers are now suspicious of him, and soon call Imperial guards to the village. Mami insists on defending him, confessing she was hoping he would want to stay here with her, and even Folu feels somewhat attached, but accepts her sacrifice and escapes. General Yom arrives, seizing the girl and ordering her to be taken for use in the Carronade. Back with Ryu, Deece's beacon calls forth all the current dragons in the world, though they maintain their stance of neutrality. Deece reveals she personally doesn't want Ryu swallowed up by his other half because otherwise she won't be sent back, which is a selfish reason, as she begrudges being summoned in the first place. She states she doesn't want to spend the rest of her life as a dragon watching over this world. Though unmoved, the dragons say it is still in their nature and power to help them all, though Ryu must inevitably meet with his other half. If they want him to gain some of their power, then he'll have to meet with their dragon forms in person. The Wind Dragon starts by imparting new power to him before warning Deece she cannot move against fate. With a new mission to meet the other dragons of the world, they then set off. Meanwhile, Imperial troops learn of the summoning village, and while questioning what his new role in life is, Urshan single-handedly protects the Elder and holds the line against the invading force, though he is eventually overwhelmed. As the group arrives, the Elder is saved, though Urshan is severely damaged. Deece says her power could restore him, but she doesn't want to live in the armor anymore, so Urshan dies, thankful for at least being granted the chance to experience life. The rest of the villagers are in hiding in another hidden village nearby, and the rest of the group moves to check on them, but that night, Deece questions how humans can have such an attachment to life. The next day, the party is discovered and surrounded by an Imperial officer fox girl named Ursula, though Nina begs her to let them check on the other villagers first. Allowing this, they find Captain Rosso, the Imperial officer who impeded them before and broke the King's blade, already there, abusing the women and children in hiding. Seeing Ryu, he immediately attacks, which forces Ryu to transform into a dragon himself and destroy Rosso's summon. But suddenly, Ryu goes totally berserk, attacking all the Imperial officers around, and only Nina's cries seem to calm him down for now. Over with Folu, he learns Mami got arrested so he can get away, and we see Mami in the middle of a sacrificial circle prepared by Lord Yuna. He orders the Carronade, a giant magic cannon, to aim and fire at the village that harbored Folu. As it turns out, this cannon actually creates and fires the malevolent hex plaguing the land at the cost of the life in the sacrificial circle. Folu is hit directly by the negative energy, and as he collapses, a shiny trinket once belonging to Mami falls next to him, causing him to laugh now in despair. Back with Ryu, they capture Ursula, and Nina thinks the sooner they get Ryu complete the better, since he likely went out of control precisely because he is incomplete. They allow Ursula along as well and ask her to help them to the Empire, which was her mission anyway, so she doesn't object. Going out to retrieve Deece, they find she changed her stance and chose to now attach herself to Urshan again, who comes back to life as well as a result. Needing a new sand flyer, they approach the same smuggler as before, who helps them out as a future investment. With it, they now travel and gain new power from the Sand Dragon, Mud Dragon, Grass Dragon, Tree Dragon, Rock Dragon, and Sea Dragon. The gate they used to enter Hesperia last time is no longer functioning, so they're now forced to advance by sea instead. While this is going on, Folu makes it to the Imperial capital, where nothing stands in his way towards the throne. While his ancient guardians recognize him, he confesses he's tired of this world and its people. Since none of his successors have fulfilled his promise or legacy, he announces his new objective of destroying the current foe empire, and orders his servants to get started with the capital city. He surprises General Yom, who explains he was only following the assassination orders of the current General Soniel, who feels there is no more need for gods. After destroying all of Yom's mightiest summons, Yom understands he failed his arduous mission, and kills himself in respect to Folu's power. Approaching the throne room, it turns out that Soniel, the 13th Emperor, is a bit of a weakling and a coward, as he tries to backstab Folu and gets beheaded in the process, thus allowing Folu to reclaim the throne. Back with Ryu, when they reach the mainland, they find the gates of the capital have been closed off, but there's a path through the First Emperor's tomb they can use. Getting closer to the capital, however, they learn it's been laid waste to, so they seem stuck on moving forward either with Ursula's mission to turn them in, or Ryu's quest to meet his other half, or even what happened to Alina. Revisiting the fort they infiltrated before, they find it overrun by monsters instead, and heading into the basement they find things strangely organic everywhere. They are shocked to find Princess Alina down here, bound to a wall, and she asks them to get the Dragon Slayer sword from Lord Yuna and cut her down. Finding Yuna, he claims to be a pacifist and drops the Dragon Slayer before fleeing. However, they return to Imperial headquarters only to find it blighted with Hex now. With the Dragon Slayer in hand, they cut off one of the bizarre organs in the basement and move on ahead only to run into Yuna again. He taunts them once more before leaving, and beyond they find Alina, bedridden. She thanks them for coming to rescue her, but informs them she cannot leave, now wishing to speak with Cray personally. He asks her again why she can't leave, and Yuna now reappears and interjects, explaining it's because he transformed her into one of the Endless. He reveals that at first he was going to sacrifice her to the carronade, as the more attached the victim is to the location it's fired at, the more potent the hex is. The problem is, the sacrifice must first be prepared by bringing out negative emotion due to torture and suffering, but usually they die before they're ready. So Yuna thought to try to make an immortal body instead, revealing the grotesque experimental body he made out of Alina. In fact, the organs they passed on the way in are also part of her, as she somehow grew in power and became part of the structure. Given how she can now endure any amount of pain and not die, Yuna is convinced he's made a god with his own hands. Enraged, Cray moves to kill Yuna, but the mad scientist runs away yet again. Not wishing to suffer anymore, Alina asks Cray to end her with the Dragon Slayer, as his love for her is the last thing she wants to see. That night, Nina mourns as the group decides what their next move is. They learn General Run, the officer Ursula is assigned to turn them into, is in the capital fighting the monsters there, and with Ryu seeking his other half there, they make the capital their next destination again. Finding devastation everywhere, they encounter Folu's ancient guardian and manage to defeat it. At the doors of the castle, Ursula finds a wounded General Run and presents Ryu to him. He then apologizes to them all, not realizing the army was aiding Yuna's plan to try and make a new god, but also attempt to kill the old gods. He knows it's too late to realize how foolish it all was, and asks Ryu to show mercy to at least the children. As they move on, Ursula bids farewell to the general, who turns out to have been her grandfather. Preparing themselves and entering the final doorway, the Yore dragon halves of First Emperor Folu and Ryu finally meet. Folu easily knocks aside the rest of the party, claiming they cannot merge because Ryu is too attached to mortals like these. Urging him to sever these ties and ascend with him, he tells Ryu he'll be waiting on ahead. As they climb up once more, Ryu meets with the real Folu and moves out to meet him alone. As they stand together, Folu can sense Ryu's thoughts and memories along his journey, as well as his wish to save the mortals. Clashing, Folu reminds Ryu he too is an endless, and the life and death of all mortals is beneath him. In their minds, Folu exposes his own and Ryu's terrible experiences of foolish and selfish humans on the way here. However, Ryu holds his ground, pointing out the good in mortals, like the kindness and caring Mami had shown Folu himself. Refusing to merge on Folu's terms, Ryu, Dragon of the Future, Nina, Princess of Windia, Cray, Chief of Woland, Urshan, Armor for the Goddess Dis, Sias, Ronin Mercenary, and Ursula, Imperial Captain, challenge the First God Emperor for the fate of the world. Defeated, Folu now realizes that while weak and contradictory, mortals can come together and still accomplish great things, as he is suddenly absorbed into Ryu, and the resulting man is neither Folu or Ryu. The Yore dragon now addresses them all, explaining that Folu also believed this world does not need any gods, and now decides to cast them out and return them to their world, just as Dis wanted anyway. Exerting his will, he instantly ends the Endless, and now the remaining dragons will live out their new mortal lives. Elsewhere, Yuna notes the Endless are no more, but isn't worried, as he's confident he can make more as he sees fit. As the game ends, the Yore dragon fulfills his role and leaves with the other gods, and Ryu is left behind, now a normal mortal. Dis decides to stick around after all, now taking a liking to her armor shell. Ursula returns to the now demolished empire, ready to rebuild it as an ally to the east. For the rest, they now move ahead in a new world unguided by gods, but confident things will work out. Breath of Fire 4 has enjoyed the success of selling over 560,000 copies worldwide. This recapitation was chosen by Bartweiser. Thanks a lot for supporting the show as a patron, you're awesome! If you would like to support the show yourself, please follow the Patreon link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next battlefield.